This episode's brought to you by the Public Domain Shop, a clothing brand inspired by classic literature and film. Use the code WOLFF to get 10% off your next sweatshirt purchase. Every time I watch Over the Garden Wall, the emotional story, likable characters, beautiful yet haunting autumn dreamlike atmosphere, and one of the best soundtracks ever made, never disappointed. But up until recently, one thing that always bugged me was, even though Wirt's strained relationship with Greg stems from hatred towards his stepdad,
oh, you and your stupid dad!
We never actually saw their parents, and despite knowing the intent was probably to leave them a mystery, I still felt we needed to experience at least some of Wirt's home life in order to better understand him. But looking back on this show the past year, I've picked up on so many details that have convinced me, and keep in mind, this is strictly a fan theory. From a Wizard of Oz point of view, we've actually been watching Wirt and Greg's family work out their problems this entire time. Now this theory came to me while thinking about the one time in the show Wirt directly states what he thinks of Greg's dad, how it's immediately followed by Greg finding the frog on the rail tracks and finishes with their descent into the unknown. Almost as if once Wirt blurted out who he believed were the banes of his existence, he's immediately forced into a spiritual journey, a pilgrimage if you will, to reconsider these thoughts. That was when I started to consider whether or not Jason Funderburker, no, not him, him, was supposed to represent the stepdad, since right after Wirt rants to Greg about how bossy and demanding he considers the stepdad, Greg instantly finds and shows Wirt a representation of how he sees his old man, completely innocent, gentle, and friendly. Like him. And upon thinking about the rare times Wirt and Greg actually talk about Jason together, their conversation on the ferry stood out most, where Greg says,
"But he's our frog."
Well, he's not my frog.
And how if you were to swap the word frog with father for those two exact lines, between these characters it would still work. Obviously the joke's immediately after that, and the fact that they're talking about a frog.
Well, he's not my frog. Or she's not my frog. We don't really know its gender.
Wouldn't lead anyone to think that. But there is a callback to that line in the final scene I'll talk about later that I think lends credence to this theory. But believe it or not, when wondering if he's the stepdad and who's the mom in the show, Beatrice was not my first choice. Miss Langtree having just as much a motherly personality as a teacher, right down to the fact that her students live in the school, kind of making her their guardian.
Now send him to bed!
You heard, Father. Off to bed with you.
But I'm nocturnal.
Shut up! Just seemed more obvious. And listening to Langtree's lament even changed my outlook towards a song I've always enjoyed, but like a lot of the show's songs, often made me wonder what a one-time character's backstory had to do with these kids trying to return home. But considering the song's about a woman reminiscing on her emotions towards the man she considered her love before stepping out on her, I started imagining her as Wirt's mom and wonder what she might have been like after her divorce, the possibility Wirt's dad stepped out on them and, despite making an effort to remain a good role model for Wirt, struggled so much with the betrayal before meeting Greg's dad. And the new life they made together was what gave her peace. After all, the minute Greg steps into the school, his naturally enthusiastic personality, from getting everyone to perform potatoes and molasses, to putting on a benefit concert for the school, everything he does purely out of kindness brings out a more hopeful, optimistic side of her. The kind of hope having a newborn child in your life probably would. But also the kind of hope that might also overshadow another child and make them envious. Anyways, I spent so long thinking about the ways Langtree could be a motherly metaphor that I had to look at this poster of the show for it to occur to me that Beatrice was the main symbol for Wirt and Greg's mom. A poster where everyone's happy to be with each other, even though, in my opinion, the final scene between the four of them was the only time I'd say this image ever reflected that. It always confused me, but then I did a double take, realizing there are 3 boys and 1 girl, remembering that in Wirt and Greg's house, it's 3 boys and 1 girl. And from then on, so many other details like how Wirt and Beatrice are sitting on one side together while Greg and Jason are on the other, the fact that the 3 related by blood can always talk to each other throughout the show, but the odd one out can only communicate with his son, except on rare occasions.
Huh?
But the big one being something I love to analyze in movies and shows, color symbolism. Specifically Wirt's red and purple costume missing Beatrice's blue hue, hinting at the conflict between them, whereas Greg and Jason, the inseparable father and son, are both matching green. And looking at how any of the other characters may be parallels to the parents, I noticed 2 other patterns of characters with certain colors in their costume design and traits that might remind Wirt of his stepfather. So if all these characters are symbolic of the parents, what does that say about Wirt and Greg's family? Well, if it's anything like the way Greg treats Jason, where they always hear each other out, make decisions together, and have such unwavering loyalty, as long as they stay together, maintain an optimistic look that keeps them out of trouble, Greg and his father have the healthiest relationship. It's only after the two of them are separated towards the end of the show that either of them suffer any hardships. Wirt barely acknowledging Jason's presence without Greg's input definitely emphasizes how Wirt only interacts with his stepdad if he has to. Now, Jason never hops on Wirt or bothers him with constant croaking, so there is a chance he's not as invasive as Wirt thinks he is. You can make the argument Jason minding his business towards Wirt means he doesn't make an attempt to bond with him and prioritizes his own son, but you could also say Wirt's antisocial tendencies towards him might explain that too. As for Jason and Beatrice, the two of them, I've watched this show so many times, I don't think they ever have a line between each other, let alone an arc. And in any other movie or show that would indicate some marriage troubles, but since they have no problems to overcome in the unknown, it's safe to assume they're a happy couple, and in case them raising Greg as a ray of sunshine didn't prove it already, they can be great parents, while also making it clear they prioritize one child over the other. Wirt and his mom, on the other hand...
My brother's name is Wirt.
Who cares? Oh, sorry, everybody, sorry. No, he doesn't have a brain. He can't learn anything.
Well, guess we have to spend some quality time together.
I've seen a couple times in movies and shows where a kid befriends a younger version of their parent or relative, and the bond they make over the course of the film helps them better understand each other. The main difference here is, based on their interactions, the mother-son dynamic was troubled from the very start. Beatrice, the one leading the boys and the frog home, is the de facto leader, giving the impression the mom may be the real head of the household. But because raising a teenager and a kindergartner are difficult individually, let alone together, with or without a significant other, it's safe to say Beatrice ordering the boys around in a more tough love or impatient way shows her frustrations with them from time to time, as, in fairness, every mom does.
And nobody is singing anything anymore.
But we have to do something fun.
You know, we really don't.
You two are literally killing me every moment I'm forced to spend with you.
Going off track for a second, it's the main reason Natasha Leggero, the original voice for Beatrice, came across too bossy and noticeably sounding much older than Wirt, compared to Melanie Lynskey's voice being more graceful and her age ambiguous, wouldn't have worked in comparison.
Don't crash, Wirt. Don't crash it. Too bad you have to go fix the car. You don't even know how to start the engine.
Given his age and the fact he has nothing but nice feelings towards everyone, she's much more lenient towards Greg, and since Beatrice and Greg never seem to have any conflicts in the show, Greg and his mom presumably have an overall strong bond. But since Wirt's much older and should be more capable of taking on bigger responsibilities, especially looking after Greg, is openly harder on him.
Wirt, let's go, come on.
Hey, where's Greg?
Oh, wandered off, I guess.
Cheese and crackers.
Oh, Wirt, your brother could be in trouble somewhere.
A fact that, since he always does what he's told, something she herself wishes Greg would do more often.
Greg, don't you want to be more like your brother? Just always doing what you're told?
While Greg ignores orders he doesn't like,
School? Psh, not today.
wanders off, does whatever he wants without considering the consequences his brother usually has to face,
Greg threw all our money away. Take him, not me!
Wirt finds incredibly unfair. But when did the conflict between them really start? When watching John Cleese and Tim Curry play Adelaide and Auntie Whispers for the first time, like a lot of fans, I heard their voices coming out of these characters and thought to myself,
what the fuck?
Cleese playing two characters so obviously even little kids can tell it's him was especially distracting, and I don't have an answer for that last part, but the reason I bring this up is I finally asked myself, if these characters are all metaphorical, which two people in his life would Wirt merge together as one? It had to be one male and female each, but the male stood out more. A married couple seemed like an obvious choice, and from then on, connecting his biological parents to Adelaide and Auntie Whispers as his mom and stepdad suddenly became more clear. Adelaide is the one couple that was supposed to always be there for each other and their child, but was so dysfunctional, possibly abusive on his dad's part, that his mom literally had to air things out in a way that untied their knot. It was Beatrice's job to lead the boys to safety. It was Wirt's mom's job to protect him. Whether she didn't know Wirt's dad was trouble, didn't do something until it was too late, or based on Beatrice bargaining with Adelaide, a little bit of both.
Servant? I thought you just wanted some yard work done.
Whatever the case, all we can assume is Wirt hasn't let go of the fact that, even though it's over, it happened nonetheless, and blames his mom in part for supposedly not protecting him.
What? But I thought we were friends.
And with Wirt keeping the scissors that cure her curse away from her, I think in real life, his mom's curse is whatever ties to their past life he refuses to cut. Therefore, if he won't move on from the past, neither can she. On the flip side, the fact that Adelaide's scissors were historically used by midwives to cut umbilical cords, and in the show are conveniently shaped like a stork. If he doesn't give her the scissors, he himself can't be free as a bird in order to make his own decisions in life. If his mom didn't have control over the situation in her first marriage, she at least found someone who loves and respects her enough to share the responsibilities of parenthood with her. So she now has the power to make her own choices, and with her husband and second son, she focuses more on the present in order to let go of that part of her past. But judging Beatrice's attitude towards Wirt for all the good her marriage and Greg's birth did for her, it also made her more demanding towards Wirt, most likely attempting to teach him responsibility, but at the expense of him becoming too obedient, rarely if ever standing up for himself, and if he does, easily folding over, and has trouble knowing when you're supposed to be loyal to your family or your own independent self. And if you're gonna put a pushover in charge of anyone, let alone a young boy, he's not gonna know what to do, and it'll put both of them in danger. You can make the argument Wirt's pushover game against Beatrice was probably to show the controlling relationship that may have developed between them before or after meeting Greg's dad, as if to say, even though he dwells too much on their past, she doesn't do it enough until forced to look back on her past self a la Christmas Carol and realize, you know, maybe I could have done things a little differently.
That lady's got some baggage.
What's that?
It would certainly explain why Beatrice, being the mom's present, not past self, is the only animal Langtree doesn't notice, and Wirt being punished for her own thoughts adds to his belief he's blamed for everything.
Hey, dunce, this is dreadful.
Good. I'm glad you feel that way.
And since Greg and his dad weren't part of their lives yet and seemingly don't have this issue, them being outside the classroom playing makes perfect sense. Speaking of Greg, obviously not having been born yet, he stays silent throughout the entire Adelaide sequence, watching whatever past troubles his family's been through. And Jason, much like the stepdad, doesn't appear until afterwards, where Wirt watches Greg grow up with a father that's always there and supportive for him, a relationship that, even if for the best, won't have with his own, being the driving force behind his jealousy towards his stepfather and brother. Compare that with Auntie whispers representing a relationship and parenting style that at first looks and feels just as bad and is genuinely flawed, with Lorna forced to do countless chores and not interact with the outside world by a guardian who doesn't address her literal inner demon.
By the time this task is complete, she will return and order me to a new task, and so it goes.
A feeling Wirt can definitely connect to, and the ringing of the bell controlling her most likely representing how, thanks to his new father figure and the birth of his brother, Wirt is so overwhelmed by his new responsibilities he feels he has no control over his life to even address the issues with his family. Which made me realize Auntie Whispers was just one example of what every character with black clothes or a character design acts like. In most movies and shows, black clothes usually portrays characters in a sinister way, but here, it's much more deceptive. The Woodsman, Enoch, Whispers, even Jimmy B and Old Man Langtree, at first glance are portrayed as Wirt probably sees his stepdad, and how any other fairy tale would portray a step-parent. Imposing, mean-spirited, and always claiming authority over others.
You are responsible for you and your brother's actions.
You come to our town, you trample our crops. Now you want to leave.
Young man, do something!
I have finished already.
Then clean this floor until it shines.
With physical traits that, at his worst behavior, makes him seem like the very Fred he and his mom faced before.
I can smell the children in this house.
What are you doing? Boys, the beast is upon you.
Particularly because I simply have to punish you for your transgression.
And obviously don't want to repeat, except whatever Fred Wirt initially sees in them is revealed to be a misunderstanding, while being too physically incompetent to be of help, making him out to be a bumbling idiot and supposedly explain where Greg's naivete comes from. Speaking of Greg, it also made me realize characters dressed in black are the only ones who ever scare him throughout the entire show.
You have beautiful eyes. You're needed in the operating room.
Throughout their journey, Greg's been experiencing the very reasons Wirt doesn't trust Greg's father without even realizing it. At best, he sees a side of his father he never recognized before, and at worst, Wirt can influence his views towards him in a misleading way. Rewatching Babes in the Woods, looking at how the Old North Wind's trapped in a bottle that says Old Windbag, which, wow. The fact Greg literally bottles up a huge problem and is rewarded for it while his brother's still suffering, it got me thinking. Maybe Greg does know his dad can be difficult towards others, especially his brother, but has chosen to ignore that side of him up until he trades himself to the beast to protect Wirt. More on that later. But ironically, the majority of these characters are people Beatrice never directly speaks to, even when she's in the scene. When the people of Pottsfield arrest her, she's too busy looking at and blaming Wirt for his supposed transgressions to even address Enoch. Overall, giving the sense Wirt's mom either doesn't see, notice, or even acknowledge the more controlling side of Greg's dad. Probably because both of them not only have the same problem, but are demanding over the exact same thing in particular. Whenever any married couple wants to have a kid, whatever obstacles come with it, they're signing up to face, and it's a choice they make together. Now, imagine we'll say 10-year-old Wirt, see his mom start a new life and give him a new sibling with someone he doesn't like, watching her and the stepdad give Greg more love and attention than him, forced to play with him in what little spare time he has when he's not at school, listening to him screaming and crying when he's at home in the day and trying to sleep at night, and after a couple of years once he's old enough to babysit, has to spend more time watching Greg's every move and every crappy preschool VHS, feeding him, changing him, taking him to the men's room, putting him to bed, while trying to handle all the screaming and crying on his own, than on his poetry, Sarah, or hanging out with friends who either only babysat a neighbor or cousin a few hours a night once a week in comparison, or in Wirt's eyes might tease him over the things younger siblings say or do that are completely embarrassing. I mean, the fuck could go wrong there?
Fuck if I know.
Now look, in all fairness, since his parents obviously pull their weight doing things they don't want to do despite having lives of their own...
I can't leave. I'm honor bound to help you since you guys helped me.
Would you care for this dance?
No thanks. No thanks. No thanks. I said no thank you.
I have work to do in the mill. When I am finished, I will do what I can to guide you.
And there's no way in hell he can afford a clarinet, music lessons, and a tape deck without them. I don't want to give the impression Wirt's had no downtime or that his parents never give him nice things. Also, the episodes where there are no adults to guide them through the woods make it abundantly clear just because he's always following orders doesn't instantly mean he learns from them. Whether he wants to admit it or not, he still needs parental figures in his life to prepare him for when he does grow up, and has to be in charge of himself or someone else. But upon rewatch, one line that really stuck out was when Beatrice's mom said this.
If you see Beatrice again, give her a hug for us.
Wirt's remorseful look on his face reminded me of the first episode of Frasier.
A snide comment about this, or a smart little put-down about that. Just once would it have killed you to say thank you?
No matter how well his parents treat him, and regardless of whether he obeys their orders or not, I get the sense they don't express their affection or gratitude towards each other enough, let alone on the same level they no doubt do for Greg. And in return, he never gives so much as a hug, high five, or says anything resembling an I love you to all three of them. He's too fixated on what his family doesn't do for him, to the point of overlooking what he does appreciate about them, and what they appreciate him for. Before analyzing the characters dressed in black, I originally noticed how all the characters dressed in green followed a pattern of how Wirt perceived all of them. A little brother who gets more love, more slack, and a better outlook on life. Not to mention a more loving, supportive father figure. A Geppetto-like friendly yet eccentric stranger, right down to being a woodworker trying and failing to advise a pointy-nosed kid who may be lying to himself. God, it's like McHale could see into the future. And a romantic rival who seriously thought he had a chance. Right from the start, despite Wirt's green-eyed thoughts towards them, we as the audience can instantly tell they're no threat to him. His resentment's all in his head, and more importantly, they all like Wirt and want to help him. I know the woodworker may sound like a random character to focus on, but I don't think him singing passionately about a wedding followed by Wirt forced to sing about his mom's remarriage is a coincidence. When Wirt nervously asks him for directions to Adelaide's, as plot convenient as his word salad was to make it sound like an awkward crush,
I was wondering if you knew the way, her name is Adelaide.
Imagine Wirt walking up to his stepdad and asking him how he should go about talking to or spending time with Sarah. Much like Wirt looking around the tavern and seemingly seeing no one else to ask for directions, or in this case, direction, chances are there's no one else he feels comfortable talking about this to in real life, so Wirt has no choice but to ask him, and for all Wirt's trust issues with him, it's clear he doesn't want to be afraid of him.
He could have done away with us by now if that was his plan.
But the anxiety of having to ask a step-parent about something so personal would explain Wirt's miscommunication and the step-parent innocently failing to realize that. But even though the advice he gets sounds more like what his stepdad wants him to do, not what he wants,
trying to get me to join marching band.
The two of them at least do occasionally make attempts to connect with one another. And for every differing opinion that keeps them distant, the things they have in common can bring them and the whole family together. Another reason I think the two of them singing consecutively is too coincidental. One of the reasons Potatoes and Molasses is one of the best songs and moments in the entire show is Greg's natural ability to come up with lyrics on the spot and bring out a more childlike, whimsical, and creative side in Wirt we hadn't seen from him yet, making it the first time in the show we see them bonding as brothers. A moment that, if not for Greg's quick thinking and Langtree's piano playing, wouldn't have happened. Now, Beatrice being the only main character in the show who never actually sings or plays an instrument suggests the mom either isn't a musical person anymore or wasn't as passionate about it to begin with. But looking back on probably the show's biggest what the fuck moment for me, which is really saying a lot,
at night when the lake...
The fact he just came up with that song right on the spot, baffling everyone in the process in the best possible way, recently got me thinking. Maybe Greg's dad's constantly coming up with his own jingles or lullabies for him, and that's where his knack for lyrics comes from that can accompany Wirt's composition skills perfectly. The fact he has to perform alongside Jason and Greg on the ferry to disguise themselves makes me wonder if the stepdad's the reason Wirt plays clarinet, and that the one suggestion he and Wirt see eye to eye on is why he's embarrassed of anyone knowing about it. Regardless, based on this one shot of Wirt and Jason passionately performing as Greg looks on in awe and Beatrice is at her most supportive at this point in the entire show, bobbing her head to the music, we see that if there's anything Wirt and his stepdad, let alone the entire family, have in common, want to see in each other, can work on and be proud of as a team,
nobody wants to hear me play.
I do.
it's music. Jason beginning and bookending the entire show on piano can definitely be seen as a hint of that, but even in the real world, I'm not sure what kind of music case that is, but it looks too big to be a trumpet for Greg, so it certainly proves one of the parents also plays an instrument. If it's the stepdad's and it's a trumpet, him teaching his son to play is really sweet to see, and if it's a guitar or string instrument, it might explain this weird line.
I wish Wirt Jr. had fingernails so he could play the guitar better.
But if nothing else, it shows Wirt has at least one more thing in common than with his own father, who in the context of the show can be none other than the Beast, whose only audience when he sings is for himself. I know the Woodsman being forced to work alongside the villain of the show might debunk the idea of a father and stepfather working side by side for some people, but really think about it. We're shown from the very beginning the two of them are nothing alike, a fact Wirt needs to acknowledge in more ways than one. And for the final conversation at the tavern,
The Woodsman was the guy with the weird lantern, not the Beast.
he's more than capable of telling the difference. But at the end of the day, as much as he tries to protect the boys, the Woodsman spends most of the show literally feeding the flame that keeps an evil spirit alive without even realizing it. And rewatching the show, trying to figure out what the lantern might mean in that regard, I noticed Wirt and the Woodsman's conversations are almost exclusively about avoiding the Beast at all costs, and the only real-life comparison I could think of is either the stepdad feels so much pressure to be a role model towards his stepson, or Wirt's dad somehow has the potential to still be a part of his life, and is only attempting to protect him, that he constantly tries explaining what went wrong between his parents, and Wirt, despite having actually been there, may be in denial of what happened. But as noble as he is trying to be a positive influence, without his dad, Wirt wouldn't see him as a mere replacement, and he hates the fact he has to even prove himself, but the fact he's telling Wirt to avoid him in a way that reminds him of that very person, while treating the son he's raised since birth in a more loving way, is probably why Wirt still doesn't trust him. It may also be the reason why, when Wirt and Greg leave Whispers and Lorna, the minute Whispers warns them to stay clear of Adelaide, the sad reminder of those events dissipates whatever optimism Wirt had left at that point. Regardless, to me the lantern is a bottled up version of whatever anger Wirt and his stepdad have about their past and each other that, so long as it's lit, will never go away. But while in the unknown, both brothers experience a what-if scenario that would have been much more tragic. When Greg trades his life for words, a sentence I hate saying, cause god, he's only 5, asking him to keep Jason safe before leaving with the Beast, they're weirdly trading fatherly figures. Wirt's now been given the emotionally supportive one, but without his own son's literal or figurative warmth, would be too weak to do the same for him. Meanwhile, Greg's forced to do one aimless task after another for the approval of a man who thrives off suffering and doesn't care what happens to him, enduring the same hardships Wirt and his mother must have gone through. And while his quick wit keeps him alive long enough for Wirt to save him, without the ones who raised and truly loved him, he would have completely perished. A fact Wirt watches with nothing but remorse and realizes whatever envy he's had towards the better childhood his brothers had was never worth it. And while he's always known the Beast is a threat, it isn't until the one time they speak to each other in the show where he and his stepdad have to give him the time of day and listen to what he says in order to find holes in his arguments, understand why he was such a bad person to begin with, and all that he needs to do in order to be happy with his life and move on is to take whatever past memories still burden him and either blow them out or sever his ties with them. It'll never be easy and it'll take some time to fully heal, but when the Woodsman sees someone like Wirt take the first steps in forgiving himself and the others in his life, it's the stepdad realizing the time he's wasted trying to fill someone else's shoes when he never had to begin with, and does the exact same. Even when the characters in black, the Woodsman especially, fail at protecting the boys on their journey, their efforts always make it clear the stepdad does everything he can to pull his weight. He just can't do it on his own. In fact, none of these characters can. If there's anything Wirt, his mother, and stepfather have in common is that they need Greg in their lives in order to be happy, but Greg needs all of them in his life to do the same. Without his stepdad, his mom wouldn't be a happier person, and he wouldn't have such a loving, loyal brother by his side. And obviously when they're too busy to care for Greg, his parents need each other and/or Wirt's help. Greg's safety is what makes all of them realize they have to settle their differences and find the common ground we know they have in order to work together. As much as Wirt needs to acknowledge his stepdad's a good man and stop looking at him as a replacement, while letting go of whatever past he and his mom have been through, his stepdad shouldn't try so hard to act like a replacement and just be the father to Wirt he is to Greg. And since he's proven he'd risk his life for his family, both parents can look at Wirt's selfless act with more love and gratitude towards him, and hopefully reward him more downtime to just be himself so that when he has obligations to be with Greg, he'll remain grateful to do so. Looking at the final scene of the show where Wirt's red and purple costume and Greg's green overalls are now replaced with blue hospital gowns, matching their mother while Jason's dressed in green and black, and the last line between the three of them in the show is,
"Our frog."
Our frog.
Our frog.
Oh, shut up, Funderpervert. It's safe to say Wirt's finally embraced his family for the best, and they'll gladly do the same for him. And with Jason still having swallowed the hypnotic bell, the stepdad has presumably loosened his grip on Wirt, being a more supportive and lenient parent to him as he is to Greg than before, while still keeping his stern side when he needs to. Maybe when Enoch's last words to Wirt were,
"Oh well, you'll join us someday."
he wasn't only warning that life is short but death was inevitable, but that one day he'll consider himself to be family with his stepdad. A sentiment echoed during the closing montage of the Woodworker, finishing a model of Wirt and placing it next to Greg and Beatrice, making it safe to say his stepdad considers him his son and a proud member of his family. Whether these theories of mine will last very long or even hold any water compared to other comparisons of the show, I don't really know for sure, but in any case, the beauty of Over the Garden Wall is that so much of it is left up to interpretation as to who these characters are, what they represent, and what they mean to each audience member. And you can't ask for better than that. And with that, guys, thanks as always for watching. Let me know in the comments below what you think of Over the Garden Wall and the theories I presented in this video. Be sure to stay tuned for more reviews, be sure to check me out on Patreon and buy me a coffee, and be sure to like and subscribe. Take care.